Are you looking for comprehensive solutions for your performance and automotive needs? Straightline Performance and Automotive is a full-service auto repair shop specializing in race car fabrication, electrical design, chassis setup and alignment. Located in Hamden, Connecticut, they also specialize in aftermarket high performance and chassis upgrades. Be sure to look them up on Facebook at www.facebook.com/straightline, STR8LINE, Performance, ampersand Automotive, or give them a call at 203-415-5316. Welcome, racers and fans, to the Racers News Network Live, presented by Straightline Performance and Automotive, and your hosts, Chris and Pete, bring you the latest news and interviews in the world of sportsman drag racing, including bracket racing, association races, outlaw, and no-time events. We are live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take it away, boys.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Racers News Network Live. We have an awesome guest going to be joining us. Actually, he's here, but we're going to be talking to him in just a couple of minutes. Of course, I'm talking about TJ Zizo. And to my left, on my screen anyways, is my partner in crime. Of course, I'm talking about Pete Senka. How are you, Pete?
Doing fantastic. How about you?
Awesome. Getting ready for some warm weather, hopefully.
Spring is around the corner.
Let us hope.
Yeah, right. Chris, I was thinking as I was listening to our cool new introduction song, we might have the quickest and fastest guest we've ever had on our show.
You know what? I think you might be right.
I'm telling you.
You have your notes?
This is like royalty joining us over here.
There we go. Royalty. We're breaking out the big words tonight.
TJ, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Pete. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to get heard out there and tell fans what's going on. I've been kind of in hibernating since last September.
Last September, at the end of the season, you went in and got work done, and you're ready to come back out again.
Boy, oh boy, as you guys were talking about the beautiful weather that we have in northern North America, right?
Yep.
I saw the sun today out this window to the left of me, and it was warm and it felt good. It was like almost 60 degrees here in Chicago. So
wow. That was going to be my next question is, where are you? So Chicago.
Yep, northern suburbs of Chicago. And just like you guys on the East Coast, we're looking forward to warm weather.
Amen to that.
Yeah. I was just out in Boston not too long ago, maybe like less than a month ago. And my dad grew up in Long Island. Actually grew up in Sicily, then moved to Long Island.
Okay.
He was out there till he was about 18 years old. And every time we go visit his friends out there, or we have a race out there, I truly enjoy people from the East Coast because they tell you how it is right away. There's no guessing.
No, we don't leave much up to the imagination. That's for sure.
Oh, Pete, you don't, and I love that. It's like you walk down the street and somebody says, "Get the F out of my way." Oh, okay, no problem. I got it. You come when you get to Chicago, people are a little more reserved, and by the time you get out west in California, you don't know where you stand with people.
Yeah, right.
That's all good.
I usually get messages after a show wanting to know if Chris and I are actually friends or not.
Right. Chris, are you friends?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah, you gotta be, right?
I have to be friends with him if I want to keep getting cool stuff.
Right? Him and my wife, I think, are the only two I got. So we're good.
Most drag racers don't have a ton of friends outside the drag racing world, I will tell you.
Yeah, boy, you got that right. No doubt.
I went through my friends list on Facebook one time, and I honestly could say I had less than 10 normal people in that list.
Normal people, hang on. Yeah, normal people, meaning people who don't drag race, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
people who don't understand all this nonsense.
People that aren't mad at their money.
Yeah, people that, those people like money, whereas
Yeah.
like you two guys, you hate tires and you hate money.
You know, Chris, you're not too wrong on all of that.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, Chris, I feel like I'm a banker or something, meaning, bankers get an opportunity to touch a lot of money, but they don't hold on to it.
Right.
Those tellers at Bank of America, they get it and then they shell it back out. And that's all we do as racers.
Oh boy. Well, we joke about his class, $100,000 race cars, and they're racing for $1,000, maybe
Well,
$2,000 on a good day.
In my particular case, it's $100,000 race car that's worth about 20. All right, let's be specific, because if someone offered me $100,000 for that car, I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere.
No, you wouldn't, Pete. Don't say that,
No,
because
you're right. You're
you're
right. I
just
would.
as sick as the rest of us, sir.
And the crazy thing about it is, if someone offered me $100,000 for my car, I'd have to sit long and hard about it too. As crazy as that sounds, but
Because Pete, what did I hear? You got that when you were 13 years old, and that was only like 15 years ago, right?
yeah, you just, not only are you my fastest guest, now you're my favorite.
And he's a comedian as well.
Right. Right. I love it. But I mean,
God.
the beautiful thing about the car culture, I don't care if you're into drag racing or low riders or Ferraris or whatnot. I mean, car people are really neat. We all stick together. We all appreciate one another. Every day, guys, I'm not a drag racer by trade, right? I'm a
Right.
body man. We own a body shop here, and we get a chance to really meet a lot of car people, and it's super. I love them. I love almost every single one of them.
Almost. Almost. So I've never met you personally. Been at the track when you've been there. I've seen the segments that you've done with Alan Reinhart, which I think are awesome for the sport. Super informative. I've always considered you the Top Fuel version of Steve Johnson. Not not quite as crazy as him, but definitely you put yourself out there and you're not afraid to have a good time. That was always how I looked at you.
Pete, thank you. That's a compliment. Steve Johnson, I mean, what do they call him? Like the grandpa of Pro Stock Motorcycle this weekend or something like that?
It was, just so you know, that wasn't an age reference. It was a personality reference. I just wanted you to know that.
That's all right. He has way more hair than I have.
Yeah.
But he's worked long and hard at the sport. I think that's the reason he has a lot of respect in my book. He continues to go out there year after year, as I would say, beat the bushes, find some cash to do it. He does a good job. He's won the U.S. Nationals. He's been in contention to win championships.
Yep.
I mean, Steve is well-spoken. He loves kids. He loves educating. I mean, what else can you, and he rides a motorcycle. He's a little crazy at that. At
Yes.
that point, he goes over the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Top Fuel is a puppy next to a motorcycle, right?
I don't know. Sometimes I get my most amount of relaxation when I'm in that thing. So, I guess it is a puppy for sure.
Excellent.
So yeah, probably when you're in that thing, you got to focus so much that the outside world pretty much ceases to exist.
Well, truthfully, I'll show my age. I think I've been driving that thing for like 30 years now, at least a top alcohol dragster or a dragster of some kind. It might, I think it's 30 years this year. And, I remember when I was young and really amped up to hop in the race car and do great things. Now it's truly a place to close my eyes, focus, relax, and then smash the gas. You know, it's a complete, as you get older, you get a little bit wiser. I don't know if you guys know that or not.
No. I've heard the rumors, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So it literally becomes the calm before the storm for you.
yeah, it has, and it does more and more with each passing year. Now, the crazy thing is, I think I look up to that God or spirit or friend above, right? A little bit more as you get older too. You know, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I could just visualize our last race, which was last year in St. Louis. I could visualize that, right? I could visualize pulling under the walkway in the staging lanes.
Right.
And, you know, it was first round before Brittany Force. We had qualified like dog shit. Can I swear? Is that okay?
I would encourage it. Yes.
Okay. So we qualified, I don't even remember, I think it was 16th, but I could be wrong on that. It might have been 15th or 14th, but I think it was 16th. And we had the race, the baddest hot rod in the country, and that was Brittany Force. Racing David Grubneck is no picnic.
Right.
So, you know, we knew we had our work cut out for us. We had been running well. We just had a off weekend and pulling under that walkway, and I just looked above and just said, man, just give us a little bit of a break. We just need something here, you know? And I think I drive that way a little bit more than I ever have. I remember getting strapped in a car at midnight anywhere around the country and didn't give a shit what was going on around me. I just wanted to see a flash of amber and stand on the gas. Now I think about it just for a moment.
Excellent. Good stuff. So I got to know from the beginning, what got you hooked? Where did you start? And what are you looking to do this year as far as the schedule?
What's our time frame on this one? Because why I'm asking is because thankfully my family has a long history in this, you know, which is super. What time we got to get off air, guys?
We don't.
Okay.
We just have to tuck Pete in by probably 9:15 or he'll start to fall asleep in his chair.
Yeah. If you see me do this, you know it's getting close.
we call that the Stevie Wonder, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, my dad started, he came over the boat on Sicily from Sicily to Long Island, right? Anytime you come over and you're an immigrant, you have some work to be done here in America, right? You have to pay your dues. There's a lot of things that go into that.
Sure.
And he found himself really loving mechanical items. He didn't speak a ton of English. So growing up in Long Island, we still have one of the first bicycles he built, you know? So he was real mechanical, and that mechanical wisdom turned into working on mini bikes and building faster mini bikes, and then working on cars. Well, his senior year in high school, his parents, my grandparents, decided to move to Chicago. So you got to picture this. You're an immigrant. You finally get a group of friends. You're enjoying Long Island and all the friends you made, and then your parents pick up and move to Chicago. I feel like you kind of get lost a little bit there, right? You know?
Right.
You got to grab
Like doing it all over again.
Right. But at this point, he had a lot of mechanical knowledge. So he just started building cars to street race. And, you know, he often jokes that his principal and his colleagues at work, his fellow classmates, would find him doing burnouts in the alleyway behind the high school, you know, and not in his, you know, class or the science class. He wouldn't be in his classroom. So, you know, that evolved quickly for him, barely graduating high school, and then working in an auto parts store and still being involved in cars, and then doing a little street racing in Chicago. It was prevalent in the 60s. And then decided to take that next step and bring his car to a drag strip. Little drag strip up here, Union Grove, Wisconsin, Great Lakes Dragway. It's about 30 minutes from where I'm sitting. And from there, he had a passion to keep it progressing. My dad has always been a hard worker. My dad, even at 70 some odd years old, he's still in the shop every day here. He doesn't stop thinking. He's passionate about what he does, and everyone knows it. So he took that to the racetrack, drove his like 40 Chevy Coupe up and down the drag strip, tried to go faster and faster and faster. Finally said, man, this is boring. I need to go really fast. And that evolved into meeting a gentleman at an auto parts store in the northern suburbs of Chicago. His name was Al DiPozo. Raced an alcohol dragster here in the Midwest at the time. Partnered with him, got his license in his alcohol dragster. And at this point, I was like 5 years old. So, I started hanging out at the drag strip with my mom and my dad, of course. And my dad's not really into partnerships. He's a guy who runs solo,
Yep.
Even with all our businesses and all our endeavors over the course of time, he runs solo. I think I'm the closest thing to a partnership he has. And he decided to break ties from Al DiPozo and build his own car in 1980. So at this point, once again, I was about 5 years old and hanging out at the drag strip, and my dad just kept on plugging away. And as he plugged away, my mom and I would go with him, continuing that saga all the way until I was able to do pretty much everything on the alcohol dragster. Him and I and my mom and one other person would work on it at the racetrack. God, those were the days. Holy
Yeah, right.
shit. Those are the days that I sometimes remember very fondly, of putting 4 people in a dually crew cab and a 5th wheel trailer and just going to the racetrack. Wow, those were easy days. Although we thought they were challenging.
Right. 20 years from now, you'll probably be saying that about tonight.
That is very true.
Right.
That is very true. So, I was getting closer and closer to getting my driver's license. And my mom and dad asked if I would like to drive their alcohol dragster when I turned 16. What is a 15-year-old kid's going to say?
You said, no way, that's not for me, right?
Right. I said, yeah, when can we start? So
Right.
truly, it was an amazing time in my life. I was in high school. My parents made sure I was on a good track. Like, both my parents had kind of rough upbringings. They grew up in Chicago, and there were tough times. I moved I was in the suburbs with my parents, going to a very good high school, living in a very affluent area. But all my friends, they didn't know what drag racing was. Right? That's how most of us survive, is
Same.
knowing other people who drag race.
Right.
But I didn't know anybody. So, they were playing football and basketball and stuff, and I was on my dirt bike riding wheelies through the practice field at my high school, right? So I guess I wasn't that good of a kid. My parents respected that, though. And I was always a little bit on edge, kind of like Steve Johnson, right? Steve Johnson rides motocross and does all kinds of things. And, I was brought up on 2 wheels. But my mom and dad gave me that opportunity to want to drive their alcohol dragster. So basically, I sat on the couch with my dad and him bringing me through all the procedures of it all. At between like 14 and 15 years old, probably. And then I would get a chance to warm up the car in the pit area and all that good stuff, right? Probably illegally. Division III director, I don't think, liked me very much. My dad's always wanted to break rules, so I was there to break rules with him, I guess.
Help him along.
What's that?
Help him along, right?
Yeah, right. My dad's definitely the rule breaker. I try to follow rules best I can. But so I just turned 16 years old. I just got my driver's license to drive a Ford Escort on the street. I didn't even know how to drive a manual transmission, for God's sake. And my parents, about 2 weeks after I turned 16, we went to Indy after the U.S. Nationals. They slid me in that car, and my dad basically said, go out there, hit the gas, and when you could think, shut her off. So I did my burnout. I backed up. I'm 16 years old, full of piss and vinegar and adrenaline, right? And excitement. I stood on the gas, went like maybe 100 feet, and shut it off, just like I was instructed to do. I'm good at following directions. And I coast to the other end. I get off the racetrack, and my mom and dad come to pick me up. My dad's like, why the F did you shut it off so soon? Like, what were you, why? The car was fine. I'm like, he goes, were you worried? Were you scared? Was there something wrong? Did you shit yourself? Like, what's the problem? And I was like, no, I did as you instructed. When I knew where I was and I was conscious and felt good, I shut it off. And he goes, I thought that was going to be at like 300 feet. I said, well, I guess not, So he's like, well, shit, you think better than I do. And at this point, the scary part is he's like 40 years old. He's not that old.
Right.
I'm 46 right now. And my dad basically relinquished the keys to his top alcohol dragster when I was 16 years old. I mean, first of all, God bless my parents. I mean, they're very giving people. My kids are 16 years old now. One is 17 and one is 15. I didn't relinquish any keys to anything.
I was going to say, your parents are way less selfish than I am. I'll tell you that.
Right. Selfish. There's a good word. I love that word. I mean, Pete, you're exactly right. So, it took off from there. I got my license. It took me a while. I had the best people in the sport sign off on my license. I had the Gwynn family, the Don Garlitz, my dad, of course. I mean, just wonderful people sign off on my license through that little journey. Very blessed. And it took me a while. We did it cautiously. My parents were like cautiously optimistic. I think it took me almost like 6 months to attain my license. It was smart. That was smart. Made a bunch of runs, went from Indy, then to Florida, then to our local track, just kind of made different runs in different conditions. And at that point, when I got my license, I went to my first Division III points race. I think I was still 16 years old. I was. I'd gone over 220 miles an hour at that point. But then you get to your first event and things are different, right? Things are different. You get to your first event, there's a little added pressure. You're young, you want to do nothing but rip people's throats out, and that's the way my competitors feel today, right? I race against some young people now. So we went out there and first pass, the car goes out there and does a huge wheel stand. I get off the gas. It's not slowing down. I know I took my foot off the gas, but the car is still accelerating very hard. The front wheels are over the center line. It's about 300 feet out there, probably, maybe 250. I know what's going on, and this car isn't shutting off. It's not slowing down. And I always feel that there's always been a little guardian angel following me around my life. not just in drag racing, but my life. I'm very blessed in that way. Maybe it's because I follow directions, or maybe it's because my dad has done so much interesting things in his life. He's looking out for me, you know? And miraculously, the car came down, and I still don't know how. The front end came down on my side of the drag strip. And I was able to get the fuel shut off and shut the car off and make the turn off. But I will tell you, once again, the Division III director wasn't a real happy guy. His name was Jay Hollinger at the time. And, you know, first pass, that happens. He thought I was in the throttle. Get to the end of the quarter mile, I make my turn off, I get off out of the car, and we forgot to put a tie strap on our fuel lines that ran in front of the injector. So the fuel lines got jammed in the injector.
Got hung in the butterfly, yeah.
Hung the butterflies open. Thankfully, it wasn't wide open, but it was open enough.
Right.
Because my dad, of course, wasn't too pleased with me either until he found out the situation. You know, my dad wears his heart on his sleeve. He does. He always has, and you got to respect the man for that. So, kind of like, I think it's that East Coast influence, isn't it, guys?
It's that, and being Sicilian helps too.
Yes. Yes, it does. Thank God I'm only 50% Sicilian.
Yep. Not me.
Oh my God, 100%?
So yeah, I've been told 100%, and that whole ancestry DNA came back 88%. So it's close enough for me.
So you've seen Dago Red once or twice in your lifetime?
Once or twice. Yeah, without a doubt.
This is what stuff like this is what happens when you get a Sicilian and a Russian together.
Yeah.
Yeah, God bless. Does it equal out, or are Russians even just as crazy as Sicilians?
He's a little bit crazier than I am.
We pull each other back to neutral pretty good. It's not too bad.
Okay. This is
He
what
keeps me in line when I say stupid things. So
And vice versa.
yeah.
that is excellent. Just as long as one of you guys are upset at a time, not both of you guys.
I don't know that we've ever had both of us at the same time.
No, it's a good thing we live like 200 miles apart too. So
Yeah, we'd have each other in a headlock if we were any closer.
I love it. Are you guys partners in racing too, or what?
No, he had a show way back when that I was the guest on a couple of times. He stepped away for a while, and I messaged him one night and said, "Enough's enough. Let's do it." And here we are, a little over a year later, right?
yeah, January 4th of 21, we came back on. I started this back up again, and Pete's my partner in it. But we've known each other what 5, 6, 7 years
Yeah,
now.
something like that. Yeah,
So
not quite as long as I've known my Vega, but pretty close.
yeah, pretty close.
Okay, so now that we're got all that out of the way,
Well, we're caught up. So
the Division III director was not happy with you. I need to hear about that.
yeah, so my dad comes to the end of the racetrack. Jay Hollinger was there first. I think he pulled up on a little Spree motorcycle, right? A little Spree scooter. And you know, I instantly pointed to the injector and the fuel lines. And they both laughed after that, my dad and the director. So, you know, the problem you have, right, is drag racing is an ego-driven sport, regardless of who you think you are.
Yep.
And sometimes your right foot could get the best of you. So, you know, that's exactly what they assumed right away. Like this young kid, this young punk is out there trying to prove himself. And I wasn't. So they saw that, went back, qualified for the race, and was fine after that. But it was truly luck, guys. I mean, that thing should have been upside down, sliding against the wall, truly. And that would have probably been the end of my career, because I don't think my dad would have ever believed me. You know, we didn't have data acquisition back then. We didn't have, you know, throttle position sensors. We didn't have all this stuff. I mean,
Right.
I think I have a probe up my anus most of the time. They probably make sure that I'm still breathing and stuff in the race car, right? All those things. It's probably true.
So I need to know, would that be a temperature or a pressure probe? I'm just curious.
You know what? Probably both.
Both, dual sensor.
That'd be an EGT, right? So, you know, and at that point, as we progressed, I knew I loved driving my dad's race car. I knew it was a passion and something I loved to do. And keep in mind, I was only 16 years old. Didn't have a lot of money. We had a small body shop. My dad is very passionate. I don't know if I've said that a million times. And he basically, and my mom allowed it, God bless her, to spend every gosh darn dollar on that race car. I mean, you know, we all understand that. We all drag racers get it.
Right.
So any money he made painting cars in his body shop, he spent on his race car, and God bless. So we did a lot of local stuff. Like there was an organization called United Drag Racers Association, the UDRA, primarily Midwest. And we raced that a lot. We were able to leave on a Saturday morning, come back on a Sunday morning with a little bit of cash in hand. Usually we did very well. My dad was champion. I was champion. So, you know, we did well. We went to select NHRA national events, very select because they were expensive to go to. We did most every Division III race. We really did have a great time doing all of that. I went away to college, still ran his alcohol dragster on weekends, graduated from college. Didn't think I would ever work for my dad, ever. Graduated with an engineering degree and decided I'll work for my dad a little bit. Quite honestly, guys, he had everything paid for. He had a successful little business. When I graduated college, he went to Sicily. I mean, really, it was just like that. I mean, it felt like it was like I graduated and he said, I'm out of here. We went to Sicily to visit my grandma because she still lived there. And I really think at that point, he got back and I had like cleaned up the shop and got things organized and used things that I learned in college to get things a little bit finer. Quite honestly, I think he's still pissed at me a little bit because like I threw stuff out that I didn't think he really needed. That was just in my way. And I think 12 years later, he'd always ask like, hey, where's that certain tool? I don't know, Dad. It must be out in your other garage or something.
Where's that fender for that Volkswagen we've been saying?
Totally. I mean, and that is the truth. But I think at that point when he came back, you know, it wasn't that long. He wasn't gone for months. He was gone a while. He saw that I had really cared about what was going on. Kind of turned the keys over to his business and just let me run with it per se. And, you know, I had known my wife for quite a bit of time. We had met senior year in high school. We had gone to college together. We both had our degrees. We both had our diplomas. And we both wanted to start our life together. So I'll never forget. I'm sanding a car. It's my dad and I. We're in our body shop. It's a 1,300 square foot body shop.
Wow.
I'm sanding on a car, going, Dad, I really love that you've spent every gosh darn dime you've ever made on a race car, and I could appreciate that. And thank you very much for all that you've done to do that for us and for me. But I'm not that dedicated. You know, I want to buy a house. I have other things, other aspirations, you know. I'm not as fortunate as you, Dad. I mean, even back in the 70s and 80s, you could work really hard in a body shop and make significant money.
Right.
Our industry, even in the 90s, was getting to a point where you could work really hard, but you weren't making the money that was once made. And got even worse today. So I said, I'd really like to do something different. Maybe we go-karting, do something a little less expensive. And next thing at this point, guys, I gotta back up a little bit. We had 2 alcohol dragsters. I had a pretty hot rod one, and my dad had his old one that he had refurbished. So we had 2 alcohol dragsters, 2 teams essentially. But the sport, Top Alcohol Dragster was starting to pass us by. The PSI supercharger was in vogue. Injected cars were starting to come along. We had a Roots type supercharger that it was a lighter car, but it just couldn't keep up. So I didn't want to spend all the money updating to a PSI car, and just I'm sure my dad would have. My dad would have done anything. He didn't care, So he made a phone call to one of his good friends that he met along the way. His name is Fred Mandolini. He was friends with Aldo Pozo. I mentioned Aldo Pozo a couple times. He passed away in a drag racing accident. And when I was getting my license, or just after I got my license, my dad was fortunate to know some great people like Alan and Blaine Johnson, along the way, because my dad was a Chevy guy and they were Oldsmobile people. So early on in their careers. So, my dad had a good network of people. So Fred Mandolini, of course, he was good friends with because of the Chevrolet days in the 80s and 90s. So I'll never forget it. Like the sun was shining in our body shop. The door was open. I was sanding on a fender. It could have been a Volkswagen, Pete.
The one you threw out, damn you.
Exactly. I was probably looking for it in the backyard. And he made a phone call, and I could hear him talking. Our office was my dad's office was like 6 by 3. It was like a closet. And I could hear him talking, and he's talking about going to look at a Top Fuel dragster. Now, this is like 2003. So, and I'm thinking to myself, here it goes. My dad's nuts, like, what is he thinking, and just by pure luck, he goes, hey, I know Tim Wilkerson. I helped him out. I think Fred was his crew chief at the time for Tim Wilkerson. I believe so. He was helping Tim out extensively. Smart individual, and said, you need to go look at a Top Fuel dragster that Tim has for sale. This was 2003. So he gets off the phone. He goes, hey, TJ, we're going to look at a Top Fuel car next weekend. I was like, that's the exact opposite thing of what I was thinking, But basically, my dad taught me how to work really hard. It is something that he has taught me. Although I'm looking over my computer and over this camera, he recently got me a little placard that says, Dear Lord, please help me not to be so busy making a living that I forget to make a life. I didn't live that way for decades, guys. He taught me how to work really hard, and that's what I did. Anyway, going back to Top Fuel. So at this point, we had 2 pretty successful alcohol dragster teams. My dad had his team. I had mine. My dad was very nice to give me all the hot rod stuff all the time, give me all the hot rod guys and girls working on it, right? We took one of our team members, his name is Tony Smith. He's still with us today. It's been 30 years. We took him down to Springfield, Illinois to visit Tim Wilkerson's shop. So it was the 3 Tonys, my dad, me, and Tony Smith. We go down there to look at this Top Fuel dragster. No idea, what a Top Fuel dragster even looked like. Like, it was never my aspiration, guys. I know a lot of kids say, oh my God, I dream to be a Top Fuel pilot someday, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. Guys, I was content driving a Top Alcohol dragster and having a good time. you know? We go down there and Tim's like, hey, if you could scrape up enough money to buy this thing, I'll help you out. Because truly, when we looked at, even back then, when we looked at the systems on that race car, they were way above us, you know? But my dad's crazy enough to take very big risks in his life. So basically, we were on our way home from Springfield, Illinois to Chicago. It's only a 3-hour trip. I went to Illinois State University. It's in between. We stop at my favorite place to get some chicken wings. Of course, I need to eat, right? So the three of us are chomping on chicken wings. They're the best in the country. Place called Schooners in Bloomington Normal. We're chomping on chicken wings, 2003. Really not a care in the world. Everything's paid for. All is well. And the three of us decided to buy a Top Fuel car. You know, my dad putting his neck on the line, me trying to figure out maybe where we were going to get that money from, and Tony Smith wanting to learn how to work on it. Tony's a really smart individual. And Tim Wilkerson, of course, saying, hey, you give me some money.
Yeah, right.
I'll help you out with it. So at this point, we had like 8 team members working on our 2 alcohol dragsters. One of them knew a gentleman who owned a pretty big company here in Chicago. So along the way, it was kind of known that I didn't want to spend our money racing, right? I wanted to sand a fender in our body shop, paint it, and put some money in my pocket. You know, I didn't want to buy connecting rods with it. So we went to our friend who was helping us on this alcohol dragster, and he went to his friend and said, hey, can you sponsor a Top Fuel dragster? You know, he's like, sure. So, you know, Tom Pecora, like I said, there's always been a little angel over my shoulders. Tom Pecora from Champion Packaging, love him to this day, said, yeah, I'll make $100,000 commitment to you guys to do this. Now, if I would have known what I know today, how much $100,000 get you, we wouldn't have done shit.
Yeah, right. You would buy tires. That's about it.
Right. But
Maybe.
thank God, Steve, we didn't have a clue. We didn't have a clue. Sometimes that's the best way to go about it. So we figured, okay, we could sell our 2 alcohol dragsters. We could get $100,000 sponsorship. My dad had a line of credit. He can max that out on his house. Remember, my dad owed nobody anything. He didn't owe anything to anybody, right? And why not, TJ? Let's try it out. You could maybe work with Tom and find other sponsorships. And because my dad's really not a sponsorship-driven guy, right? He's a Sicilian, hardworking guy, and that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to talk to people and schmooze people, and that's just not his deal. But I was decent at that. You know, I enjoyed that part of business. So we just went after it as we're going to go get a car. My dad's going to max his line of credit out. We borrowed money from other team members. I say we, it's my dad. My dad borrowed money from everyone to get that car home. We got it home. We put it in our shop and went, what do we do with it now? You know, it's so cool. So Wilkerson had one of his guys come to our shop to help us learn how to work on it. So we combined both our alcohol dragster teams to one team to work on our Top Fuel car. And the crazy thing is, you know, if I looked out in our shop right now, that was 2003. And we still have that car, and I still drive that car today. That's how much we cherish our stuff.
That's the same car?
It's the same car that is competitive in NHRA today.
That's cool. That's very cool.
It's kind of like you and your Vega.
Right.
You know? I mean, keep in mind, there's not much left to it other than our driver's compartment, right?
Same,
that we originally bought, right? Exactly, just like yours.
same.
Thank God, Steve, we haven't gotten fatter over the years, right? You know?
Oh, yeah, I've had to move a couple bars around, but yeah, it happens.
Oh, my
Funny, the
God.
steering wheel gets further away every year. I don't know what's going on there.
I love it. I love it. So we get this ragtag team of guys and girls together. We're trying to work on this thing. We're working on it. We bring it to the drag strip. And I think one of my first passes back then, it ran, this was 2003. It ran a 474 at like 313 miles an hour or something, you know? And all I remember from that, you know, Fred Mandolini was there, Tim Wilkerson was there, my dad was there. This was at Route 66, Joliet, good, safe facility. One of the first memories I have is a couple things. One, Fred Mandolini was like, you know, he's a crazy Italian guy too, right? And you know, he saw the way in which I drove that car. He just drilled me into the ground. Like the first time I stood on the gas, you know, I was only supposed to go to 330 feet. I'm sure I did. I shut it off. I make the big, at this point, we got all this data acquisition on the car. He's like, you did this wrong. You did this. You did this. It's, you know, he's busting my balls. And I appreciated that. I really did. And then on our first full pass, all I remember hearing in my headset was, oh boy. And what Tim Wilkerson was saying was, hey, asshole, the finish line is at 1,320 feet. You're still on the gas, and it was probably 1,600 feet down the racetrack.
Wow.
I had no idea where I was, guys. I mean, that car accelerated so, and it was at night. You know, there were so many things going against me. I remember there was a dually down at the end of the racetrack, and all I could see are their headlights and stuff. You know, it was like, it was an ideal situation for sure with a first full pass on a top fuel dragster, but I've never been granted anything easily in my life. You know, he was basically telling me, shut the effing car off, is what he was saying. Did I overstep my bounds on that? I'm learning.
No. Freddie Perkins dropped the first F-bomb this year. Don't worry about it. You're good.
Perfect. So it's like, you know, my brain, my body was probably at 660 feet, although the car was at the finish line. That's how hard that thing excelled.
You step on the gas pedal for the same amount of time in the alcohol car and the top fuel car. The problem is the top fuel car is 1,600 feet, right? The alcohol car is only 1,000.
Truly, I had made so many passes in the alcohol car, hundreds and hundreds of passes. Steve, I never even thought of it that
it's way. Like muscle memory, right?
I might have been programmed. I mean, that's what drag racing allows you to do, is program yourself. So that may have been some of it, some of the situation, quite honestly. Good point. I never even thought of that 30 years later. Well,
I know I locked my knee for 5 seconds, so that should be about right.
Right. Totally. So, you know, now I'm licensed. And what we learned right away about top fuel drag racing is it's a business, is what we learned right away. I was starting to grow my dad's little body shop. I was starting to grow our racing endeavors, right? I was ambitious, but we learned right away that you do not have friends in top fuel. So one of our team members squawked out back then on Nitrometer that, hey, TJ got his license, did a good job. This is what he ran. This is how he did it. He made his 6 runs, whatever it was at the time. We're going to Joliet for the first national event or whatever it was at the time, right? And a competitor called up NHRA and said, hey, TJ did not fulfill his requirements completely. I think I don't remember the exact circumstances, guys, but I was like a couple miles an hour off or some stuff of the record, right? I mean, I think my second pass wasn't quite as stout as my first. So like I wasn't within that record percentage to get your license. And we had to scramble to go to St. Louis on an off weekend to get my license. And that was a good lesson learned that, you know what, this is a business. People understand that I might be sitting in a competitive race car because of Tim Wilkerson and his help and what we ran to get my license and all of those things. And maybe they didn't want to be bumped out of the show with their Fram sponsorship at the time, right? So it was really kind of a pleasure to go out there and make a couple more laps on an off weekend. We were at a Black Sunday event, super cool. And you know, all those guys know about Chevrolets and Impalas and G-bodies, and here we roll up with a freaking Top Fuel dragster at a Black Sunday event in St. Louis in the freaking heat. You know, we did what we had to do. We obtained my license. We did what we had to do. We were then at that point quiet about our endeavors in Top Fuel. Although our team member, Tony Smith, still squawks on Nitrometer all the time, and I love his comments. I lurk on Nitrometer, I don't comment. And it was just one of those situations where I think it was good for us as a team to go out there and make a couple more laps and get some more things going on. We went to Joliet and tried to qualify for our first event. We didn't. We came up short. Route 66 notoriously has a bump in the right lane at about 700 feet. I don't remember if it was a shortened, maybe we only had one qualifying pass or two qualifying passes. I know we were working out new team blues and new car blues and new TJ blues, and we're working on a lot of things that event. I believe the first pass it didn't go down the racetrack, and then the second pass, I felt like it was hazing the tires and blowing the tires off. Well, it went over the bump and unloaded itself, but it was still hauling ass. But I just got spooked. And we ended up not qualifying. But once again, you know, it was a good lesson learned and good thought process. And then from there on, we just learned that we needed more equipment and better things and more money. And Tom from Champion Packaging basically said, here's my credit card, here's my McMaster car account, here's my Granger account. Go buy all the tools you guys need, go buy everything you need to be successful at this. So he even at that point got us a semi to lease from Tim Wilkerson. We look like the real deal, but we didn't have a pot to piss in. My dad still owes money on his line of credit today. So many years later on all that stuff. But we just grew from there. We learned and we kept our heads down, and most of our team members on our race car currently have been with us since that point. I mean, you know, we've lost some and gained some, but most of the core guys have been around since then. You know, one of the team members our crew chief currently was at that first test session where I was attaining my license. His dad, Mike Fazer, drove a fuel altered, and Mike Kern, ambitious young man at the time, he's a little older than I am currently, wanted a little different endeavor and wanted to learn more about Top Fuel dragsters and funny cars and stuff. So he came to work for us and worked on our cylinder head program, and then started building engines for us, and really was the smartest man in our pit area and was the most courageous and bold to say, I want to tune that race car. So in like 2008, Tim Wilkerson was still helping us in the background. Dave Settles helped us out. We had a lot of great people helping us at that point. Even like Ron Tobler was helping us out a little bit. And first race with Mike Kern as our crew chief, IHRA event, Milan, Michigan. Blew it up at the finish line or right before the finish line, cut a tire, jammed me into the wall. It was like, holy cow. So, crazy stuff, that's the perseverance of drag racers. He wanted to quit. We got a junk race car that just was sliding along the wall at 303 miles an hour. But my dad, once again, steps in and goes, hey, let's get this thing apart here at the racetrack. We had qualified with that run because I hit the wall after the finish line. Let's get this thing apart. Let's see if we can straighten the chassis. Let's see if we get a front steering box in it. Let's see what else is broken. Let's cobble this thing together. Let's do whatever it takes. Let's make sure it's straight and true. We'll pull it around the pit area to make sure the car drives straight. Front wings ripped off and all kinds of stuff. And our crew chief, Mike Kern, at the time, once again, his first pass ever, he wants to quit.
Yeah.
He thinks it's his fault. Every crew chief wears their heart on the sleeve, right? We worked really hard all that entire night. My dad went to like Jack Ostrander somewhere along there and got a gearbox out of his top fuel dragster. All kinds of weird stuff happened that night. We put it together, went out first round, and I was able to do a burnout backup, stage the car, stand on the gas. And the conclusion was that Bruce Litton, I think we had to race Bruce Litton first round, was ahead of us. I was just going to shut the car off just for safety standpoint, right? And that's what we did. But it was that perseverance that I think allowed us to gel right then and there, because Mike Kern since then has done a great job for us. We've had a lot of tutors along the way, but he's done a great job. And we've done it with our core guys through this whole time. And I think that's what makes us somewhat competitive in 2020 and moving forward. I've worked really hard trying to maintain sponsorship. We had Peak Antifreeze for more than a decade. We nurtured that program. Brian Bolander is still a friend of mine, was our champion over at Peak Antifreeze.
Yep.
Introduced me to the right people. Tom Pecora got us that Peak sponsorship in the beginning because Tom Pecora of Champion Packaging bottled Peak products at his plant.
Wow.
Basically, Tom reached in his own pocket and said, whatever it was, a penny of each product that I produced for you guys, we'll put towards Zizzo Racing. I think it was like a measly 40 grand at the time,
Right.
it felt like it was raining money to see 40 grand in 2004. That was 2004. And all these little things just happen to fall into place for us over time. And the reason I keep on looking to the right is because on my monitor, I got two monitors up. On my other monitor is a picture of our car in 2019 in Gainesville, hauling ass and kicking ass and being number one qualifier on a Friday night. That 2000, it's a 1999 McKinney dragster. We just worked really hard to make it all work. And then when we lost Peak, we really thought maybe that would be that hiccup to say, okay, we've had enough here. We're maxed out, we're tapped out. But once again, my dad doesn't give up. My dad is just relentless. And we kept on, even when we lost the Peak sponsorship, he kept on buying parts, like Dad, no, we don't need stage 5. No, I think it was stage 7 cylinder heads at the time. It's not what we need to do. We need to think about selling our stuff, but he's not that way, and he still isn't today. It's fascinating. And I mean, my dad and I just had a conversation this morning about a similar situation we're going through. Actually, he was sitting right over my shoulder in that red chair, and we were discussing some stuff. I've been moved out of my offices, guys. This was actually a closet that I made into an office. You know, we have certainly progressed since our 1,300 square foot body shop. But, you know, it's those things that when we lost Peak Antifreeze, we still had our team members working on our race car and my dad reaching into his pockets to buy better parts so we could be competitive. And I was still working really hard at finding marketing partners. And we came across Rust-Oleum. I mean, this was 2003 probably. Only because, guys, one of our customers at our body shop worked for him. That was it. You know, and he goes, oh my God, Rust-Oleum would be a perfect sponsorship for your Top Fuel car. And he was a drag racing fan.
Right.
And I told him, I said, dude, that's great, man. Chris, I appreciate that. I love that you think it would be a great sponsor, but that's not how this program works. Why don't you go to your boss at Rust-Oleum and figure out who you need to talk to internally to find out where sponsorship dollars come from. And he did that. And one of the only reasons we have a Rust-Oleum sponsorship today is because that boss, the marketing director at the time, I believe she was, maybe even not a director at the time, but she had influence, was an Illinois State University graduate, and so was I.
Wow.
That was the only reason she didn't want to sponsor a Top Fuel dragster. They had no idea what a Top Fuel dragster was. They wanted nothing to do with the Top Fuel dragster. Quite honestly, they didn't sponsor anything. I think they sponsored the Cleveland Cavaliers at the time, and a couple, maybe like a golf tournament or something. But they saw internally what we could do for them in our body shop. That was it. Had nothing to do with the Top Fuel dragster. It was like, well, we could do some R&D. We could help them out. We could do some video shoots for them. So there was no sponsorship in the beginning.
Right.
Zero sponsorship. We lost Peak. My dad was buying parts. We had a pretty big overhead at the time with our racing endeavors. I'll never forget, I was on the roof of my house, putting a roof on my house, literally putting a roof on my house when I got the phone call from my boss at Rust-Oleum that said, hey, you guys done some pretty great things for us, R&D and stuff like that. We would like to go to one race and try this for one event. And I was like, okay, one event, God bless. There's some friction here, you know? So the money my dad was spending, allowing us to buy parts, would allow us to be able to compete a little bit better. Because quite honestly, when we were with Peak, we were on such a limited budget. We were trying to go to a lot of races, 12 events a year on a limited budget. It was killing us. It was killing us financially and mentally. We appreciated it. It got us to where we are today, but we were flat out broke. We were doing it because we loved doing it. We had competed in IHRA. We came in second in championship points. We were fairly competitive in NHRA. We just wanted more. We were addicted. But we learned through that process too. We got to be smart. So Rust-Oleum came along and gave us an opportunity to go drag racing. Again, this was 2014, I believe. That was 2014. We went to one event. We signed a long-term contract with them to do more. Rust-Oleum has been wonderful to us. They allow us a lot of flexibility. I still work, our team, our body shop team, sometimes our race team, work really hard for them day in and day out. If it was just a sponsorship program, I don't think it would have still been going on 8 years later. Truthfully, Rust-Oleum, I don't think sponsors anything now except our Top Fuel Dragster.
Wow.
So, and it's because of our hard work and dedication off the racetrack to them. We just got done with a video shoot a couple weeks ago for them on some new products that are coming out. I mean, there's just a lot of things we do as a team for them. And here we are, you know, I'm looking over my shoulder again at that red chair that you guys can see. And there's a lot of special things that happen in that red chair. It's not sexual either. You know, maybe it should be. But you know, like today, I was talking to my dad about something that is probably going to progress here pretty quickly for us. I'm not ready to divulge what that's going to be, but it's happening as we speak and as I talk. And I'm really excited about that next piece of the puzzle for Zizzo Racing, to be able to do even bigger and better things, I hope. Guys, I've worked really hard, and our entire team has worked really hard trying to do what we could with what we have. Once again, it's a 99 race car that is trying to compete with 2022 race cars. We lack a little bit in technology, and we may be able to make a giant leap forward here real soon.
Nice.
And that will be big for us. It'll be big for Rust-Oleum. It'll be big for our team. It'll give us something to grow on. So that's what we're going to do. I think that's our next piece of the puzzle. I'm not quite ready to talk about that yet. There's still a couple meetings that need to happen. But it's going to be cool, and it's going to be good for us as a team. You know, at the same time, my dad and I continue to grow our businesses. We have multiple businesses now and do all kinds of neat things. You know, drag racing and the people in drag racing are special. We have met a lot of special people in our lives, my dad and I, because of drag racing.
Yep.
Our banker is a drag racer at heart. And he has also worked really hard in his life to do great things financially. So, you know, we don't need to go to a bank. I don't need to go to Bank of America to do great things. We get to do great things differently than most because of the sport of drag racing. You know, because we can make a phone call and do great things. Know wonderful people that see something in Zizzo Racing, that see something in my dad and I and our team and how we've done it so passionately. I think that's the Steve Johnson tie-in, guys. You know, we're passionate about what we do. You asked me a question freaking an hour ago, and I'm still talking about it. I mean, that's stupid. You know, but that's my passion. That's who we are as people. You know, you look over my other shoulder and you see my calendar, and you can't see the whole thing, but there's a lot of red on there. Those are the extra things I do every day, guys, that are over and above working. You know, that all means something. It may be race related. It might be meeting a person that I like that's involved in motorsports. It might be doing this radio interview. I mean, it could be anything. It could be all kinds of things. You know, my wife will beg to differ, but that's, you know, the passion is poured out into what I do every day. And I'm learning to pour the passion into my relationship with my wife after 28 years together too. Those are big things. These are, you know, my dad gave me that placard that says, hey, keep your eye on living. You know, don't die in this chair. I mean, seriously, guys, this chair that you're looking at, it's a badass chair. It's a super expensive chair. It's super comfortable. Once again, because of the sport of drag racing, I'm sitting in it. I couldn't afford this chair I'm sitting in. It's a $5,000 chair.
Wow.
But it's super comfortable. And because of the sport of drag racing, somebody has liked me along the way to gift it to me, you know? But I was gonna die in this chair. There is no doubt in my mind, I was going to die in this chair. Keep in mind, I've worked for my dad a long time, you know? And I remember like 2007 or 8, this 1,300 square foot body shop I worked in for my dad was on the same property of his house. And one morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, he came into the shop and he's like, I thought you died, TJ. The lights were still on. I hear the air compressor going. You know, I expected to walk into that shop and you to be lying on the floor dead. And I didn't quite understand all that. You know, I was young. I wanted more. I wanted a bigger home and bigger stuff and more things and more items and a swimming pool or whatever, right? So I worked really hard for all that stuff. Nothing's ever been given to me. So I didn't realize what my dad was telling me in 2007, but basically he's like, hey, dude, there are other things in life than work.
Yep.
And basically 190 days ago, I realized that there's more to life than work. And I'm not exaggerating, guys. I worked over 100 hours a week for years on end. And I did some great things along the way. I went on some vacations and did some things with my wife and kids, but I missed a lot. I really did. And most of those vacations were because of drag racing. I was there on business. If I was in Turks and Caicos with Ron Tobler laying on a beach, it was business related. It was friendships that I made that were driven by racing, right? So, you know, I made a little life change, guys. I have. Quite honestly, I'm here like 50 hours a week now. But I think I'm only working like 35 hours a week. It's kind of crazy. I've hired more people. That's why I'm in a closet. I couldn't afford the corner.
For you, that's got to feel like you went into retirement.
It does. It feels so good. I feel healthier. In fact, my therapist is looking forward to me driving a race car again. She really thinks I will be more focused and doing better things in there because I was so out of touch with what was going on in life. Truly, I would have stroked out in this chair.
Wow.
No doubt. You know, all my friends, I didn't really have friends anymore. I mean, we joked about Facebook friends, right? You know, I didn't have any friends. Out of the sport of drag racing in our business, all my friends were done with me. You know, the only time my friends saw me is when they would come to the shop and I was here on a Sunday afternoon working on something. And eventually that gets old too. You know, they don't want to visit me. They want to go out for a beer or go play some golf or, you know, they don't want to just see me when I'm working because honestly, I would very rarely lift my head up to even talk to them when they were here. And sometimes I would even hide in a spot of our shop so I could work more and they wouldn't see me here. You know, that's how bad it got. So, you know, I've had to change my lifestyle a lot and my wife and kids, they get to see me now and they get to know who I am and I could pour my passion in any direction I want. I'm a passionate guy just like my dad is. And, you know, I've chosen to pour my passion into things outside our businesses. It's been a change. You know, I'm a schedule driven guy. Like the first time my wife said, hey, why don't you stay home this Sunday? You know, actually, she didn't even need to ask me. When I was going through all this stuff, I just stayed home on a Sunday. But on that Sunday, I still wanted to do things. I had tasks that I wanted to accomplish. And she's like, you know, it's okay to just lay here. It's okay to just watch TV. It's okay to watch a movie. It's okay to do nothing except have a cup of coffee. It's okay. And I didn't know that. I didn't know it was okay to do nothing. I've often joked about if it doesn't have to do with drag racing or business, I don't know about it. I don't know who the Three Stooges are, or, I don't know. I really don't. I lived under a huge rock for decades. And now I'm learning that, like last night, I watched them, and it had to do with racing, of course, but I watched the Michael Schumacher documentary. I would have never taken the time to do that on a Sunday. So it's good stuff. It's a good change. It's good evolution for TJ. My dad stopped asking me or telling me that I worked too much. My mom gave up on me a long time ago. So did my friends, and then so did my wife. The only one I had in my corner were probably my kids, but the only reason is because they worked at the shop. It was their summer job,
Yeah.
And they still love Dad. So thankfully, no one strayed too far away, and I'm seeing my friends and talking to people and doing different things. And I don't know when we're going to drag race, guys. I don't have a schedule right now, but I know we're going to. I know we're going to be successful when we do. Rust-Oleum has given us as a team the flexibility to go out sometime this year when we're ready. And I look forward to throwing on my Rust-Oleum fire suit. I've lost 30 pounds because I'm taking care of me. You guys are smart. You probably know that you need to take care of yourself before you take care of anything else.
Yep.
Guys, I just knew how to take care of everything else. I didn't even know how to take care of myself. I went to my doctor, and he's like, "Man, you lost 30 pounds since October. I went to the dentist, and they're like, "Man, you've had a really good checkup. Do you floss now?" I go, "Yeah, I floss now." I lied to you. I never flossed my freaking teeth. I never had time to floss my teeth. My cholesterol is less. I go work out now. I try to work out with my family 3 times a week, maybe more. I take care of myself. I go ride my motorcycle when it's warm out. I play a little golf. I take a deep breath. I do nothing on a Saturday, maybe. Maybe I pull up to the shop for a couple hours. Maybe I go back home. I don't worry about all the little shit that I used to worry about, which is kind of worrisome. I hired more people, right? I mean, maybe it's all gonna go to shit, guys. I don't know. I've hired more people to do some of my jobs that I thought I could control. I used to want to control everything. Now I just let things happen. I mean, these are good things. I'm more vulnerable than I've ever been in my life. And things just continue to fall into my lap, which is amazing. Guys, our body shop, we don't show people what we really work on because I don't want to, the general public shouldn't know what we're really working on. Because those customers don't want to see their cars being worked on the internet. We have more value in cars than everything I own combined, including my dad, the value of everything we own. And we're working on those types of cars in our body shop. It's freaking amazing. But I think everyone knows that my dad has worked really hard to get to this point. I have worked really hard to get to this point, and all our employees know that too, which is amazing. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I really have. I've lost some great employees over the course of time. Probably too controlling. I've been way too controlling, and I'm just allowing things to progress and me not having my fingers on everything. I felt like I was a puppet master for a long time. And guess what? We're doing better financially than we've ever been. So I must have been the bad one, right?
So a win-win.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm spending more time with my wife and kids and seeing that, life has passed me by, and I'm now jumping back into it. And I'm bringing my daughter to colleges with my family and showing or different universities and taking that time and having dinner and being home at a decent hour. Truthfully, this is the first time I haven't been home at a decent hour in a long time. And once again, my therapist is like, when you climb into that race car, I'm curious to how well you're going to perform. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Because I joked about in the beginning of this story, like, I jump in that race car that was the only time I could relax. And this is probably the most I've spoken in a long time. I used to speak this much all the time. And I'm learning to just let things progress. And it's pretty badass, guys. It's badass.
It is.
So that's how I got to this point, guys. That's how we got to this point, sitting in a closet.
Well, I got to tell you, I had like 3 or 4 questions lined up for you, but I'm pretty sure you covered them all.
Yep.
So you have no idea when you're going to be racing this year.
Crazy to say. My dad and I were looking at a schedule today. There needs to be a bunch more pieces put into place. I talked about my daughter going to college. I've talked about not being so selfish. So before we put pen to paper, I'm going to talk to my wife about when we should go racing next. I will talk to my dad. I will talk to our entire team about when we should go racing, not just dictate when TJ Zizzo thinks we should go drag racing.
Right.
Little different program.
We're not going to try and steer you in any way, shape, or form.
No, I am going to try and steer you. Yeah.
But just keep in mind, the Atlantic Ocean is only 15 minutes away from New England Dragway. No pressure.
I will tell you guys, Epping has a special place in my heart. I've raced in Top Fuel there a couple times. The people on the East Coast are special people. It's a beautiful location. I would love to say we could get our stuff together by mid-June. I believe that's when the race is. Don't quote me on that.
Yep.
But that won't be possible. We got too many pieces of the puzzle to put together. I love that race. I love that racetrack. I love that it's hot and humid out. We always really excel at that program. But it won't be Epping, guys. I apologize.
Well, we could shoot for 2023 anyway.
Yeah, that's a real possibility. That's an absolute real possibility.
If you were a betting person, how many races do you think you'll attend this year?
We have quite a few we need to go to. How's that per our contract, right?
Okay.
Which is great. But here's the crazy thing about our contract. Our contract it doesn't run the calendar year. It runs differently than most contracts. So
is it a fiscal year?
It is. It's Rust-Oleum's fiscal year, correct. So we have opportunities ahead of us to really maneuver around a schedule. So I would tell you guys, we could go to more races than we have in a long time this year. But that all depends on TJ Zizzo not wanting to jam a square peg into a round hole and truly just allowing things to happen, and allowing our team to progress the way it is meant to. We have like 15 team members that stand behind that race car, and every one of them have been there for a long time and will continue to be there for us. And that's the only way that I am going to be successful, and that our team will be successful. We need 2 things to happen: sponsorship dollars and those team members showing up to our race shop. And our team members keep on knocking at my door, just like you guys are, saying, "Hey, what are we doing? What are we going out?" You know, and they deserve for me to reach out to them like tomorrow to kind of give them a scenario or where we're going or what we're doing.
Sure.
So have I done a good job politically, guys, to not answer any of your questions?
You did very good. Yes. Yeah. I will
All right.
say, I'm glad that you realized that you needed to slow life down before it was too late, right? Because we all know the people that don't do it in time. We've all heard about the people that work like dogs up until they retire, and then the next thing you know, they pass away. So it's great that you had this epiphany before it was way too late. And I got to tell you, I really hope that in the next year or so you race somewhere close to where I'll be, because I would love to shake hands with you and check out the operation. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it's neat that we spoke about other things other than drag racing.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yep.
it means a lot to me that you guys allowed me to open up that way as well.
You know what, Chris and I are huge fans of the sport. We're also very big fans of educating youngsters about the sport, or even talking about just regular life scenarios around the sport. Doesn't have to be full-time drag racing results, reports. It's anything that revolves around it, or how you got there, or what made TJ what he is in the middle of March of 2022. That's what it's always been about for us.
I love that.
I have a couple of kind of silly questions to ask you to wrap this up. I have like 8 of them, and I picked a couple just for you.
And TJ, if you could actually answer one of these, that'd be awesome.
Will do, sir.
Just one. I just want one.
All right. First one. My most embarrassing moment. Drag racing, life in general, whatever.
That's an easy one. So I mentioned motorcycles early on in this conversation. Love motorcycles. I mean, I was out on my four-wheeler, not that it's a motorcycle, it has 4 wheels. I'm getting older, guys. But I was ripping wheelies up and down my street that I live on yesterday, So most embarrassing moment, one of the only guys to ride a motorcycle in my high school, had a crotch rocket. My dad hates crotch rockets, still does today. He thought I would be cool and buy a Harley when I was 16 years old. Instead, I took the bushel basket of money that my grandma gave me when I was in Sicily and bought a crotch rocket. Doing wheelies in the high school parking lot, showing off, of course. The showmanship never stopped in my eyes, even when I was 16. Went way too fast, put my front wheel down. Once again, carrying way too much momentum into a corner. It was rocky, there was construction, really stupid, and laid my bike down in front of a lot of people in a high school parking lot. And that wasn't the most embarrassing part. The most embarrassing part is my high school was fairly close to home. And I walked my motorcycle home because I had crashed it really bad, but I could still push it to my dad's house at the time, my house. I walked in the driveway where our body shop was. My dad's office door was open. He was on the phone. I pushed it in a parking lot, and he said, "I knew it. I knew you were going to crash that thing. Why do you think I wanted you to get a Harley?" So that was probably the most embarrassing part, is pushing the motorcycle up my dad's driveway.
If I won the lottery, I would buy a what?
Motorhome and travel the country.
Fair enough.
I like it. What would be the first destination?
Someplace with no snow.
Yeah, really.
That's there, guys. I'm crazy enough. There would be a no destination. I've always joked. So I lived off a road called Route 12, and Route 12 goes from basically Detroit, Michigan, all the way to Olympia, Washington.
Wow.
And I always joked that instead of making a left to go to work, I would make a right to go to Olympia, Washington. and just see the small town America. I mean, this country is badass. We are still the most badass country in the world, period. I don't care where you stand politically or who you think our president is or is not. It doesn't matter. We are still living in a country which is awesome. I would love to drive that. When I got to Olympia, Washington, and I turned around, I would drive it to like Newfoundland. I would drive it way the hell out there. I would drive to Nova Scotia. I would just go to Alaska. I would drive to Canada. I enjoy that kind of thing. Hopefully my wife would want to go with me. She does travel well in a motorhome. She doesn't travel very well via car, but via motorhome, she's badass. So that would work out well.
Very cool.
People want to check you out on Facebook or the internet. Where do they look, TJ?
You know what? I always say, Google my name, you'll be astonished. You know, I mean, isn't that the truth nowadays, guys? I mean, you know, Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms, YouTube, all of that stuff is so cool. You could simply type my name in and find everywhere to go. I'm sure there's links all kinds of places to find me. So that is one of the coolest things about the world in which we live today. You Google a name and you could get a bunch of information.
We got someone posting in the comment section for your Facebook handle and your Instagram handle.
Facebook is TJ Zizzo.
Yeah.
Instagram is as well. So
Right.
It's all the same. I mean, I think we had one of my deals along the way had to be Zizzo Racing because someone took TJ Zizzo. I think it was like a website or something like that. I remember back in the day, we tried to get a hold of him and he knew that he was holding on to something that would cost money. And I'm like, I don't have the dollars to do that, you know?
Right. Very cool. TJ, I can tell you it's been an absolute pleasure. We appreciate you taking the time, opening up to us. And when you are ready to announce your breaking news, we don't expect you to do it here. But if you would like to come back on and talk about it once you air it, we would love to have you back.
That would be super cool, guys. I would like to do that. And like I said, like 99% of the pieces of that puzzle are together right now.
Excellent.
They just need to fall into place. And I'm, once again, kind of going to that story with me getting licensed and having another Top Fuel competitor say, no. I wouldn't want to be wrong on this. So we're going to make sure the pieces of the puzzle fall together.
Absolutely. Well, we would love to hear about it once it happens.
Will do, guys.
You've got my email, TJ. Give me a buzz when you if and when you're ready.
Chris, Steve, I will absolutely, Pete and Chris, I will absolutely do that for sure. Absolutely, guys. No doubt.
All right, very cool.
Yep.
Best of luck to you this year, and hope everything goes better than you expected.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
All right, TJ.
Thank you again for your time, buddy. I really appreciate it. See ya.
Have a good one.
All right, everybody. TJ Zizzo was our guest tonight. That's qualifying so far for the interview of the year.
That was good. That was good stuff.
That was very good.
Yep.
All right, results.
Yeah.
Some people won, some people lost.
NHRA had a race. If you want to know who won, look it up.
Everybody got to sit in the rain and watch the alligators float by. So that's that.
Good stuff.
Let's see. Next Monday, the 21st, typically known as the hardest working track employee in all of Division One, Jen from New England Dragway is going to be our guest. I think you know who I'm talking about, correct, Pete?
Yep.
Everybody always talks great things about her, and she's going to be joining us to shoot the bull.
Excellent. I like it.
Then on the 28th, we're going to have Rob Keister going to be joining us. He's got some breaking news for his series. And then we're going to have one of our special shows again. It's on a Monday though, but it's April 4th. It's called the Getting to Know You Show. Going to be hosted by Billy Kleinspin from Maple Grove. And our super special guest is going to be, and I was told tonight by his wife, who we'll talk about very quickly in just a second, that he typically does not do interviews. So
Okay.
he's coming on with us April 4th. Of course, I'm talking about Vincent Nobile. It's going to be joining us.
Wow. Oh, you must have some pull with the Nobile
I do.
family.
We got some people.
Look at you.
But before we get on out of here, of course, Vincent and Taylor made a special announcement the other day that in September, they are welcoming the next generation of drag racers to an already ginormous family. Of course, talking about the Finks, the Nobiles, the Iaconos.
Bonus, yeah.
Yep.
You know what I love the most about this announcement? By the time that child is old enough to race Super Street, I'll be retired, so I don't have to worry about it.
You'll still be racing.
No, I won't.
And just Taylor has said she is taking the season off, but
Yes. Oh, I did believe me.
But-
This is the definition of an emotional roller coaster, right?
the
Taylor's
first
not
comment,
racing. Ah, shit, her sister is.
the first comment was made by yours
Yep.
truly to him when he said something, and I said, "You're screwed."
Right.
So,
Yep.
so her sister Tori's going to be racing the truck, and it sounds like she might be racing the dragster occasionally again.
So I have a funny Tory story.
Okay,
We were at New Media last year, and I was in the staging lanes fairly close to Taylor, and they were talking trash back and forth to each other, and they bet who would have the better reaction time for that time trial. So I believe, did Tori ever drive the Super Comp car?
I think it is her Super Comp car, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't keep. There's so many of them.
She
and
didn't
so
get
many
to drive
cars.
it last year because of grade points or something, so Taylor had
So-
to.
So I'm not sure if Taylor was driving the dragster, she was driving Super Street, but in any event, two different classes, and they were basically talking trash to each other about who would have the better reaction time for that round. So that round goes, we come back in the staging lanes for the next time trial, and I was walking by Tori, and I said, "How did you make out?" And she was on her phone like this, right? And I said, "How did you make out?" And she looked up at me, she went, and just
Went back to her phone.
I'm like, okay, never mind. But it's fun, you know how we're big into that whole family thing, and just to see them all interact like that and have a good time, it's just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's a little, they're a fun group. So,
Yep,
we've talked
yeah.
to Taylor numerous times, talked to her aunt a couple of weeks ago, aunt and uncle a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And so it's going to be cool to, we're going to have some special intro music for
Uh-oh, good stuff.
special. So it's going to be cool to get to know Vincent. I mean, obviously we know he's raced pro stock, and
Right.
he's got a Super Comp car that's coming together. I think their first race is going to be is it the Open that's first, or is it the divisional? at
Yes,
Acton?
I don't know the exact dates, but I believe it's the first and second weekend in April. Or it might be the second and third weekend in April. The first one will be the National Open, and then the very next weekend is the divisional.
So yeah, they're going to be racing there, and I think they're both signed up for Charlotte as well for the national event.
Excellent, good stuff.
That's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to have our buddy Billy from Maple Grove back. Billy's a cool cat.
Yep,
So, like I said, Jen from New England Dragway next weekend, the 28th, next weekend, I said it again. Next Monday, the 21st, the 28th, Rob Keister is going to have some breaking news for the Mid-Atlantic .90 Association. And then, like I said, April 4th, Vincent Nobile, Taylor Nobile, and Billy Kleinsman from Maple Grove are going to be our guests.
Good stuff. Got a good lineup coming up.
And I want to say again, a huge congratulations and thank you to TJ. That was a killer interview.
Yep.
And
For all, well, I shouldn't even say Division One because he's known a lot wider than Division One. But how about a quick get well soon for Frank Aragona?
Frank's battling some stuff.
Helped out a lot of people. Great guy. He's got a lot of support from a lot of people. We just want him to know that he's got support from us too.
Absolutely. And go to the Fink Racing camp at any racetrack that they're at, and they have some really cool stickers to give away for anybody.
I'll be getting mine as soon as I see him. Absolutely.
So, and I think if you message Jackie, she said she would she'd mail some out too. So
Excellent. Good stuff.
So everybody, thank you for tuning in, checking us out. We'll be back next Monday night at 7:00. If you're going somewhere this week, in the next weekend, drive safely, race safely.
Enjoy the weather that's coming up, guys.
Yep, it's supposed to be like 70 up here on Saturday. So
Can't wait. Can't wait.
all
Good
right,
stuff.
Pete.
All right, my man. Have a good night. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
We'll see you, pal.
All right, everybody, have a great night. We are out of here.